My name is George Harrison. Welcome to Top 10 Emotional Comeback.
I walked through my front door expecting to find peace. Instead, I found strangers sleeping in my bed, eating my food, and laughing in my living room like they owned the place. My nephew looked me dead in the eye and said, "Uncle George, we needed a place to stay. You understand, right?" I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just smiled and said, "Of course, stay as long as you need." They had no idea what that smile really meant. They had no idea what I'd been planning the moment I saw them there. Please like this video and listen to my story till the end, and let me know which city you're listening from. That way, I can see how far my story has traveled. My name is George Harrison, though most folks in town just call me George or Mr. Harrison from the old hardware store on Maple Street. I'm 74 now. My back aches when the weather changes, my hands shake a little more than they used to, and I've learned that getting old isn't just about counting years. It's about learning when to speak and when to stay silent. And Lord knows, I've gotten good at staying silent. Every morning starts the same way for me. Up before the sun, black coffee with just a splash of cream, sitting by the window, watching the world wake up. I watch the neighbors walk their dogs, the paper boy make his rounds, the mailman starting his route. Simple things, peaceful things, the kind of things you don't appreciate until someone tries to take them away from you. This house, this little two-story cottage with the blue shutters and the garden out back, it's more than just wood and nails. It's every sacrifice I ever made. Every double shift I worked at the hardware store. Every birthday I spent alone because I was saving for something better. Every dream my late wife, Margaret, and I shared over Sunday morning pancakes. She used to sit right where I sit now, looking out at the magnolia tree we planted together, saying, "George, one day this will all be ours." Really ours. No landlord, no rent, just us. Well, Margaret passed 8 years ago. Cancer took her slow and cruel, but she fought like hell. And when she was gone, this house became my promise to her. I kept it exactly the way she liked it. Her wind chimes still hang on the porch. Her rose bushes still bloom every spring. Her favorite blue vase still sits on the mantel, even though there are no flowers in it anymore. After she died, people kept asking if I was lonely. Truth is, I was. But lonely isn't the same as weak. I learned to cook for one, to sleep on one side of the bed, to talk to her picture like she was still listening. And maybe she was. Maybe that's why I held on so tight to this place, because it was the last piece of her I had left. Then my nephew Tyler came back into my life. Tyler, my sister's boy. I hadn't heard from him in maybe 6, 7 years. He'd moved out west somewhere, chasing some big career opportunity that never quite panned out. But when he called me 3 months ago, his voice was different. Tired. Desperate. "Uncle George," he said, "I know it's been a while, but I'm in a tough spot. Me and Cassandra, we're trying to get back on our feet. Just need a little time to figure things out." Now, I'm not a heartless man. Family is family, right? So I said what any decent person would say. "Come stay with me for a bit. Get yourselves sorted out." He thanked me, promised it would only be temporary, maybe a month or 2. Said they'd help around the house, keep things tidy, respect my space. I believe him because I wanted to, because that's what family does. We give people chances. But when I opened that door 2 weeks ago after visiting an old friend upstate, everything changed. The smell hit me first. Strong cologne, cheap perfume, something fried and greasy lingering in the air. The living room was rearranged. My couch, the one Margaret picked out at that estate sale 20 years ago, was shoved against the wall. There were shoes everywhere, jackets thrown over chairs, empty takeout boxes stacked on the coffee table. I stood there for a moment, just breathing, trying to keep my composure. Then I heard laughter upstairs. Not polite laughter. Loud, careless laughter. The kind that doesn't care who hears it. I climbed the stairs slowly, each step creaking under my weight, and when I reached the landing, I saw them. Tyler and Cassandra in my bedroom. My bedroom. The one Margaret and I shared for 32 years. The bed was different. They'd replaced my oak frame with some modern metal thing. The quilt Margaret's mother made was gone, replaced with some black and gray comforter that looked like it came from a department store clearance rack. Her pictures, our wedding photos, the little ceramic birds she collected, all of it gone. Packed away like trash. Cassandra was standing by the window, looking at her phone, completely unbothered. Tyler was sitting on the edge of the bed, scrolling through his laptop. When he finally looked up and saw me, he didn't even flinch. "Oh, hey, Uncle George. You're back early." "Early?" I said slowly. "I told you I'd be home today." He shrugged. "Yeah. Well, we thought you'd appreciate the upgrades. This room gets the best light in the morning. We figured since you're getting older, the smaller guest room would be easier for you to manage. Less stairs, you know? Less stairs. Like I was some invalid who couldn't climb 10 steps. Like this was his house to rearrange." Cassandra finally looked up from her phone. "We kept all your stuff, George. Don't worry. It's in the attic. Safe and sound. Safe and sound. In the attic." Like Margaret's memory was just clutter to be stored away. I felt something crack inside me. Not anger, not yet. Something colder. Something that settled deep in my chest and stayed there, heavy and unmoving. "Where's my bed?" I asked quietly. Tyler waved a hand dismissively. "It's in the garage. We didn't throw it out or anything. Just needed the space. Needed the space. In my house. The house I built with my own hands. The house I paid for with 40 years of sweat and sacrifice." I looked at them both, standing there so casual, so comfortable like they belonged and I didn't. And I realized something. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't them being thoughtless. This was a plan. They decided, without asking, without even pretending to care, that this was their house now, that I was just the old man in the way. So I smiled. I smiled because that's what you do when you're not ready to show your hand yet. "All right," I said softly. "I understand. You needed the space." Tyler relaxed, thinking he'd won. Cassandra went back to her phone, and I turned around and walked downstairs, that cold, heavy weight still sitting in my chest. But they didn't see the look in my eyes as I walked away. They didn't notice the way my hands clenched into fists, then slowly released. They didn't hear the promise I made to myself right then and there. They thought I was just some weak old man who'd roll over and take it. But they were wrong. Dead wrong. And by the time I was done, they'd understand exactly who they'd try to push around. Because patience isn't weakness, and silence isn't surrender. It's strategy. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table with a notepad and pen, writing down every single thing that had changed, every disrespectful word, every boundary they'd crossed. And as the sun started to rise, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, I knew exactly what I had to do. They wanted to take my house. Fine, let them try. But they were about to learn that taking something and keeping it are two very different things. And this old man still had a few tricks left. What happens next will show them exactly what happens when you underestimate someone just because they're kind. The morning light came through the kitchen window like it always did, soft and golden, touching the countertops Margaret used to wipe down every evening. I sat there with my second cup of coffee, watching Tyler and Cassandra move through my house like they owned it. They were comfortable now. Too comfortable. Cassandra made herself breakfast without asking, using my pans, my dishes, leaving the mess for later. Tyler sat on the couch, feet up on the coffee table, talking loudly on his phone about some investment opportunity. I just watched, quiet, patient, the way a man watches a storm brewing on the horizon, knowing it's coming but not running from it. Because I'd already started making calls. The first one was to my lawyer, Dennis Murphy. Dennis and I went back 40 years. He'd handled Margaret's estate, helped me with the house deed, even represented me when the city tried to raise my property taxes unfairly. "George," he said when he picked up, "what can I do for you?" I told him everything. Every detail. The rearranged furniture, the stolen bedroom, the way they'd packed Margaret's things away like garbage, the way they talked to me like I was a burden in my own home. Dennis listened without interrupting, the way good lawyers do, and when I finished there was a long pause. "George," he finally said, "you're the sole owner of that property, correct?" "Yes," I said. "And they don't have a lease, a rental agreement, nothing in writing?" "Nothing," I confirmed. He exhaled slowly. "Then they're guests, and guests can be asked to leave. But if they refuse, we'll need to go through formal eviction." I'd expected that. But Dennis wasn't done. "There's something else, George. If they've made unauthorized changes to your property without your consent, If they've damaged or removed your belongings, that could be considered conversion or even theft depending on how we frame it. Did they take anything of significant value? I thought about Margaret's quilt, her pictures, the oak bed frame her father built by hand. Yes, I said quietly. They took everything that mattered. Dennis was silent for a moment, and I could almost hear him thinking. Let me dig into this, George. In the meantime, document everything. Take pictures. Write down dates and times. And whatever you do, don't confront them directly. Let the law handle it. But I wasn't just relying on the law. My second call was to my daughter, Emma. She lived 2 states away with her husband and kids. But when I told her what was happening, her voice turned sharp and fierce. The way Margaret's used to when someone crossed a line. Dad, she said, why didn't you call me sooner? Because I wanted to handle it myself, I told her. Well, you're not handling it alone anymore, she said firmly. I'm coming home. She arrived 3 days later with a suitcase, a laptop, and a fire in her eyes that reminded me so much of her mother it hurt. Emma didn't waste time. She walked through the house, taking pictures of everything. The rearranged furniture, the missing photos, the clothes Tyler and Cassandra had scattered everywhere like they were marking territory. This is unbelievable, she muttered, shaking her head. They really thought they could just move in and take over. That night, Emma sat me down at the kitchen table and opened her laptop. Dad, she said, I did some digging. Tyler's in debt. Deep debt. Credit cards, personal loans, even a lien on his car. He's been evicted twice in the past 3 years. My stomach dropped. And Cassandra? Emma's face hardened. She's got a history, too. Small claims court, unpaid rent, even a fraud charge that got dismissed. Dad, they didn't come here to get back on their feet. They came here because they had nowhere else to go. And they're planning to stay as long as they can. The realization hit me like cold water. They played me, used my kindness, my loyalty to family as a weapon against me. I felt something shift inside, that cold, heavy weight turning into something sharper. Resolve. Emma reached across the table and took my hand. We're getting them out, Dad. Legally, cleanly, and permanently. But you have to trust me. Can you do that? I nodded. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel alone. The next morning, Tyler came downstairs looking smug. He'd been on the phone late into the night, laughing and talking like he didn't have a care in the world. When he saw Emma sitting at the table, his smile faltered just a little. Oh, hey, Emma. Didn't know you were coming. She didn't look up from her laptop. I'm here now. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Cassandra appeared a few minutes later, her hair still wet from the shower, my shower, and when she saw Emma, her expression shifted. Guarded. Defensive. Morning, she said coolly. Emma finally looked up. Morning. We need to talk. Tyler exchanged a glance with Cassandra. About what? Emma closed her laptop slowly, deliberately, and folded her hands on the table. About how long you're planning to stay. The room went silent. Tyler laughed, but it sounded forced. We talked about this with Uncle George. We're just getting back on our feet. It's temporary. Emma's voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. Temporary implies a timeline. So what's yours? Cassandra crossed her arms. We'll leave when we're ready. Wrong answer. Emma opened a folder and slid a piece of paper across the table. This is a formal notice to vacate. You have 30 days. Tyler's face went pale. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious, Emma said. You're not on the lease. You're not on the deed. You have no legal right to be here. And according to the documentation we've gathered, you've made unauthorized changes to the property, removed personal belongings without permission, and created an unsafe and uncomfortable living environment for the homeowner. Cassandra's voice rose. This is family, Emma. You can't just throw us out. Emma leaned forward, her eyes hard. Family respects boundaries. Family asks permission. Family doesn't steal someone's bedroom and pack away their dead wife's belongings like they're trash. The words hung in the air like a slap. Tyler opened his mouth, then closed it. Cassandra looked away. You have 30 days, Emma repeated. After that, we go to court. And trust me, you don't want that. They left the room without another word. I sat there, staring at the notice Emma had prepared, feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. Emma looked at me and smiled softly. They're not going to go quietly, Dad. But we're ready. That night, I heard them arguing upstairs. Muffled voices, sharp and angry. I couldn't make out the words, but I didn't need to. They were panicking, realizing that their free ride was ending. And I'll admit, part of me felt satisfaction. Not cruelty, just the quiet satisfaction of finally standing up for myself. But I also felt something else. Sadness. Because this was my nephew, my sister's son, someone I'd held as a baby, watched grow up, believed in. And now he was a stranger. A stranger who tried to take everything I had left. The next few weeks were tense. Tyler and Cassandra barely spoke to me. They avoided Emma completely. But they also started packing. Slowly, reluctantly, but they were packing. One evening, Tyler knocked on my door. He looked tired, defeated. "Uncle George," he said quietly, "can we talk?" I nodded and let him in. We sat in the living room, the one they'd rearranged, and for a long time, neither of us spoke. Finally, he said, "I'm messed up. I know that. I didn't know where else to go." I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw a man who'd lost his way. "Tyler," I said slowly, "you didn't just mess up. You disrespected me. You disrespected Margaret's memory. You treated my home like it was yours to take." He flinched. "I know, and I'm sorry. Cassandra and we've been struggling for so long. I thought maybe if we just had a place to stay, we could figure things out. And you thought lying to me was the way to do that." He looked down. "I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you everything. That's the same thing, son." We sat in silence again. Finally, I said, "You leave in 2 weeks. That's non-negotiable. But if you need help finding a place, if you need references, a little money to get started, I'll help. Because that's what family does. But you don't get to stay here. Not after what you've done." Tyler nodded, his eyes wet. "Thank you, Uncle George. I don't deserve it, but thank you." When he left, I sat there alone, feeling the weight of it all. The anger, the betrayal, the forgiveness I wasn't sure I was ready to give. But I also felt something else. Peace. The kind that comes from finally setting things right. And as the days counted down, I realized that sometimes the hardest part of standing your ground isn't the fight. It's knowing when to stop fighting and let people face the consequences of their own choices. The days moved slowly after that conversation with Tyler. The house felt different now. Heavier. Like the walls themselves were holding their breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Tyler and Cassandra kept to themselves mostly, moving through the rooms like ghosts, quiet and resentful. But I noticed things. Small things. The way Cassandra would glare at me when she thought I wasn't looking. The way Tyler's jaw clenched every time Emma came downstairs. They weren't leaving quietly. They were leaving angry. Emma noticed it too. One morning, she pulled me aside in the kitchen, her voice low. "Dad, I don't trust them. They're planning something." I frowned. "What do you mean?" "I mean they're too quiet, too cooperative. People like them don't just accept defeat. They scheme." I wanted to tell her she was being paranoid, but deep down, I knew she was right. I'd seen the way Tyler whispered to Cassandra late at night, the way they'd huddled together looking at their phones, faces tight with concentration. So Emma did what she does best. She investigated. She went through the house when they were out, checking drawers, closets, anywhere they might have hidden something. And what she found made my blood run cold. In the guest room closet, tucked behind a stack of old blankets, was a folder. Inside were printouts. Lots of them. Property records. My property records. Estate planning documents. Even articles about elder exploitation and how to claim adverse possession of a home. They've been researching how to steal my house legally. Emma's hand shook as she showed me the papers. "Dad, they weren't just planning to stay. They were planning to take ownership. Look at this." She pointed to a highlighted section about adverse possession laws. If they could prove they'd been living here long enough, paying utilities, making improvements, they could argue they have a legal claim to the property. I felt sick. Not just angry, but genuinely sick. These were people I'd welcomed into my home. People I trusted because they were family. And they'd been plotting to rob me the entire time. "What do we do?" I asked quietly. Emma's face was hard, determined. "We move up the timeline. They don't get 2 weeks. They get 72 hours. That afternoon, Dennis came to the house with a sheriff's deputy. Tyler and Cassandra were in the living room when we walked in, and the moment they saw the uniform, their faces went white. "Tyler Hayes and Cassandra Mitchell," the deputy said formally, "you are hereby served with an expedited eviction notice. You have 72 hours to vacate this property. Failure to comply will result in forcible removal and possible criminal charges." Cassandra shot to her feet. "You can't do this. We have rights." The deputy's expression didn't change. "You have the right to leave peacefully." "That's it." Dennis stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "We have evidence that you've been planning to unlawfully claim this property through adverse possession. We have documentation of your research, your planning, and your intent to defraud Mr. Harrison. If you'd like, we could discuss this in court. But I promise you, you won't win." Tyler's face crumbled. "Uncle George, please. We weren't really going to—" I raised my hand, cutting him off. "Don't lie to me again, Tyler. Not now. You've lied enough." The room fell silent, except for the ticking of the old clock on the wall, the one Margaret wound every Sunday morning. Cassandra grabbed her purse. "Fine, we'll go. But you're a selfish old man, George. You have all this space, all this money, and you can't even help your own family." Emma stepped between us. "Help? You call stealing help? You call disrespecting a grieving widower help? Get out. Now." They left the room, footsteps heavy on the stairs. The deputy stayed to make sure they didn't damage anything on their way out. And I just stood there, feeling hollow. Empty, like I'd won some kind of battle, but lost something I'd never get back. Over the next 3 days, I watched them pack. Emma supervised every box, every bag, making sure they didn't take anything that wasn't theirs. And on the third day, when they loaded the last of their things into a borrowed truck, Tyler paused at the door. He looked at me, his eyes red, his voice broken. "I'm sorry, Uncle George. I really am." I wanted to believe him. Part of me did. But the other part, the part that had seen those papers, that had heard their plans, couldn't. "I hope you find your way, Tyler. I really do. But you won't find it here." He nodded once, then walked out. Cassandra didn't even look back. The door closed, and the house was silent. Truly silent. Not the uncomfortable silence of strangers invading your space, but the peaceful silence of being alone again. Emma hugged me tight. "You did the right thing, Dad. I wasn't sure if I had, but I knew I'd done the necessary thing." That night, I walked through the house room by room. I opened the door to my bedroom, the one they'd stolen, and looked at the empty space where Margaret's quilt used to lie. Emma had already started putting things back. The pictures were on the dresser again. The ceramic birds were back on the shelf, but it still felt wrong, like something had been broken that couldn't quite be fixed. I sat on the edge of the bed, the new one they brought in, and I thought about Margaret, what she would have said, what she would have done, and I heard her voice in my head, soft and steady like it used to be. "George, some people will take and take until there's nothing left. Don't let them. You're worth more than that." I nodded to the empty room. "You're right, love, as always." The next morning, I called a furniture store and ordered a new bed. Not the old oak frame that was gone, sold, or thrown away, I'd never know, but a new one, solid, strong, mine. And when it arrived a week later, Emma helped me set it up. We put Margaret's quilt back on it, her pillows, her favorite throw blanket. And when it was done, I stood back and looked at it. It wasn't the same. It would never be the same, but it was mine again. And that was enough. Emma stayed for another week, making sure I was okay, helping me put the house back in order. But eventually, she had to go home to her own family. "Call me if you need anything, Dad," she said, hugging me at the door. "Anything at all." I promised I would. And when her car disappeared down the street, I walked back inside, closed the door, and stood in the entryway. The house was quiet, but it was my quiet, my space, my peace. I made myself a cup of coffee, sat by the window, and watched the sun rise over the magnolia tree. And for the first time in months, I smiled. A real smile. Not forced, not bitter. Just content. They tried to take my home. They tried to take my dignity. They tried to take everything Margaret and I had built together. But they failed. Because I'd stood my ground. Because I'd refused to be a victim. Because even at 74 years old, I still had fight left in me. And as I sat there, watching the world wake up, I realized that sometimes the greatest victory isn't defeating your enemies. It's reclaiming yourself. Weeks turned into months, and life settled into a new kind of normal. The house felt like mine again. I'd replaced the furniture they'd moved, repainted the walls in the bedroom back to the soft cream color Margaret had chosen, and filled the spaces with things that mattered. Photos, books, the little trinkets we'd collected over the years. It wasn't about erasing what happened. It was about refusing to let it define me. But peace, real peace, doesn't come all at once. It comes in small moments. Like the morning I woke up and didn't immediately think about Tyler and Cassandra. Or the afternoon I sat on the porch swing without feeling that knot of anger in my chest. Or the evening I cooked Margaret's famous pot roast, just for myself, and didn't cry when I set the table for one. I'd started going to the senior center on Thursdays. Just for coffee and cards, nothing fancy. But it felt good to be around people again. To laugh. To talk about things that didn't hurt. One of the guys there, old Frank Miller, he'd been through something similar with his son. "It changes you," he said one afternoon, shuffling a deck of cards. Not in a bad way, necessarily. Just different. You learn who people really are. He was right. I had learned. I'd learned that kindness without boundaries is just weakness in disguise. That family doesn't mean obligation. That sometimes the people who hurt you the most are the ones you'd have done anything for. But I'd also learned that I was stronger than I thought. That even at my age, even after everything, I could still stand up for myself. Then, about 4 months after they left, I got a letter. No return address, but I recognized Tyler's handwriting on the envelope. My hand shook as I opened it. Inside was a single page, handwritten, the ink smudged in places like he'd been crying while he wrote it. "Uncle George, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even expect you to read this. But I needed to write it anyway. I've been good at therapy. Cassandra and I split up. She's gone back to her family, and I'm trying to figure out who I am without her. Turns out, I don't really know. The therapist keeps asking me why I thought it was okay to treat you the way I did. And the honest answer is, I don't know. I was desperate. I was scared. And I convinced myself that taking from you wasn't really stealing because you're family and family shares, right? But that's not true. And I know that now. I stole from you. I disrespected you. I disrespected Aunt Margaret's memory. And I'm sorry. I know those words don't fix anything, but they're all I have. I'm working now. Just a warehouse job. Nothing special, but it's honest work. I'm renting a room in a house with 3 other guys. It's not much, but it's mine. Earned, not taken. I'm trying to be better, Uncle George. I don't know if I'll ever get there, but I'm trying. I hope you're okay. I hope the house feels like home again. And I hope one day, maybe not now, maybe not for years, you can think of me without hating me. Tyler." I read the letter 3 times. Each time, I felt something different. Anger, sadness, relief, maybe even a little bit of pride that he was trying. But mostly I felt tired. Tired of carrying the weight of what happened. Tired of the bitterness that had settled in my bones. Margaret used to say that holding on to anger was like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. She was right about that too. I didn't write back. Not yet. Maybe I would someday. Maybe I wouldn't. But I folded the letter carefully and put it in the drawer of my desk, next to the old photos and the receipts from when we first bought the house. Not because I'd forgiven him, but because I wasn't ready to throw it away either. That night, I had the dream again. The one I'd been having since Margaret passed. We're in the kitchen, and she's making pancakes, humming that old song she loved. The sun is streaming through the window, and everything is warm and safe and right. And I'm just standing there, watching her, feeling so grateful that this is my life. But this time, the dream was different. This time, she turned around and looked at me, really looked at me, and she smiled. "You did good, George," she said softly. "You stood your ground. I'm proud of you." I woke up with tears on my face, but they weren't sad tears. They were the kind that come when something inside you finally lets go. When you realize you've been holding your breath for months and you can finally exhale. Life went on. Emma called every week, checking in, making sure I was okay. My granddaughter started sending me videos from college, silly things, her singing badly, her showing me her dorm room, her laughing with friends. It reminded me that life keeps moving forward whether we're ready or not. One afternoon, I was in the garden pulling weeds from around Margaret's rose bushes when I heard a car pull up. I didn't recognize it, but when the door opened, my heart nearly stopped. It was my sister, Tyler's mother. Patricia. We hadn't spoken since everything happened. She'd called once, angry, accusing, saying I'd ruined her son's life. I'd hung up on her, but here she was, standing in my driveway, looking older and more tired than I remembered. "George," she said quietly. I stood up slowly, brushing the dirt off my hands. "Patricia." We stared at each other for a long moment. Then she said, "Can we talk?" I almost said no, almost told her to leave. But something in her face stopped me. She looked broken, like she'd been carrying something heavy for too long. I gestured to the porch. "Let's sit." We sat in silence for a while, the only sound the wind chimes Margaret had hung years ago. Finally, Patricia spoke. "Tyler told me what happened. All of it. I didn't believe him at first. I thought you were exaggerating, being cruel. But then I saw the papers. I saw what he'd been planning." She paused, her voice shaking. "George, I'm so sorry. I raised him better than that. I don't know where I went wrong, but I did. And I'm sorry. I didn't know what to say. So I just listened. He's trying," she continued. "He really is. He's in therapy. He's working. He's trying to make things right. I wanted you to know that. And I wanted to say I'm sorry. For defending him. For blaming you. For not seeing what was right in front of me." I looked at her, this woman who used to babysit me when we were kids, who'd been my partner in crime growing up, who'd become a stranger over the years. "Patricia," I said, slowly, "I don't hate Tyler. I'm hurt. I'm angry. But I don't hate him. He's your son. He'll always be your son. But he's not welcome here. Not now. Maybe not ever." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I understand. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry. For everything." We sat there a while longer, not saying much, just being. And when she finally left, I felt lighter somehow. Like another piece of the weight I'd been carrying had lifted. That evening, I sat in Margaret's favorite chair and looked around the house. It was quiet. It was peaceful. It was mine. And I realized something. This whole thing, the betrayal, the fight, the pain, it had changed me. But not in the way I'd feared. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't broken. I was just clearer about who I was, about what I would and wouldn't accept, about the life I wanted to live for however much time I had left. I picked up the phone and called Emma. "Hey, sweetheart," I said when she answered. "I'm okay. Really okay." She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I know, Dad. I can hear it in your voice." And she was right. For the first time in a long time, I really was okay. Because standing your ground doesn't just protect your home. It protects your soul. Spring came early that year. The magnolia tree bloomed weeks ahead of schedule, covering the yard in soft white petals that danced in the breeze like snow. I spent my mornings in the garden, planting new flowers where the old ones had died, talking to Margaret like she was right there beside me. And in a way, she was. In every corner of this house, in every memory, in every decision I made to keep going. I'd started volunteering at the library on weekends. Nothing big, just helping kids with their homework, shelving books, chatting with people who came in looking for something to read. It felt good to be useful again, to be more than just the old man who'd been wronged, to be George Harrison, the guy who knew every Hardy Boys book by heart and could recommend the perfect mystery novel. One Saturday afternoon, a young couple came in with their daughter. She couldn't have been more than 7, all pigtails and bright eyes, and she marched right up to me. "Mister, do you know any books about brave grandpas?" I smiled. "I might know a few. What kind of brave are we talking about? Dragon-slaying brave or standing up for what's right brave?" She thought about it very seriously. The second one. So I found her a book about a grandfather who protected his family's farm from developers, and she hugged it to her chest like it was treasure. Her parents thanked me, and as they left, the father turned back. "My dad's in a nursing home," he said quietly. "Doesn't remember much anymore. But I hope when I'm old, I'm the kind of grandfather she'll remember. Like you." I didn't know what to say to that, so I just nodded. But after they left, I sat down in one of the library chairs and let myself feel it. The compliment, the recognition that maybe, despite everything, I'd done something right, that I'd stood for something, that I mattered. Later that evening, I made dinner. Margaret's recipe for chicken and dumplings. I set the table for one like I always did, but this time I didn't feel sad about it. I felt grateful. Grateful for the years we had. Grateful for the memories. Grateful that even though she was gone, I could still feel her love in the way I lived my life. As I ate, I thought about Tyler's letter. I'd read it probably 20 times by now, each time finding something new in the words. The regret, the shame, the hope. And I'd made a decision. I pulled out a piece of paper and started writing. Not a long letter, just a short one. Honest. Tyler, I got your letter. I've thought about it a lot. I'm not ready to forgive you completely. Maybe I never will be, but I'm proud that you're trying to do better. That takes courage, and courage is something worth respecting. Keep working. Keep being honest. Keep trying. And maybe one day, when enough time has passed, we can sit down and talk like families should. Not now, but maybe someday. Take care of yourself. Uncle George. I mailed it the next day. I didn't expect a response, and I didn't need one. It wasn't about him anymore. It was about me letting go of the anger that had been poisoning my peace. Weeks went by, then months. Life continued in its quiet, steady way. I celebrated my 75th birthday with Emma and her family. They came to visit, brought a cake, sang off-key, and filled the house with laughter for the first time in what felt like forever. My granddaughter, Sophie, gave me a photo album she'd made. Pictures of me and Margaret, me and Emma, me as a young man working at the hardware store, me holding Sophie as a baby. On the last page, she'd written in careful handwriting, "To the bravest grandpa I know. Thank you for teaching me that standing up for yourself isn't mean. It's necessary. I love you." I cried right there at the kitchen table, not caring who saw, because she got it. She understood, and maybe that was the real victory. Not that I'd gotten Tyler and Cassandra out of my house, but that I'd shown the people who matter that you don't have to be young or strong or powerful to have dignity. You just have to decide you're worth fighting for. As summer rolled around, I got a call from Patricia. "George," she said, "Tyler's doing really well. He's been sober for 6 months. He's been promoted at work, and he's saving money. He wanted me to tell you he's grateful for your letter. It meant more to him than you know." I was quiet for a moment. Then I said, "I'm glad he's doing better. Really, would you ever consider seeing him? Just for coffee or something?" I thought about it, long and hard. "Maybe," I said finally, "but not yet. He needs to keep proving to himself that he's changed. Not to me, to himself." Patricia understood. We talked for a while longer about nothing important, about everything important, and when we hung up, I felt like maybe, just maybe, some things could be mended, even if they'd never be the same. That night, I sat on the porch swing, the one Margaret and I used to sit on every evening, and watch the fireflies light up the yard. The air was warm, the cicadas were singing, and somewhere in the distance I could hear kids laughing. I thought about everything that had happened. The betrayal, the fight, the pain, the healing. And I realized something. I'd spent so much of my life being kind that I'd forgotten how to be strong. But strength and kindness aren't opposites. They're partners. You can be both. You should be both. I've been kind to Tyler and Cassandra by letting them stay. But I've been strong by making them leave when they crossed the line. And that balance, that understanding, that's what had saved me. I pulled out my phone and looked at a picture Emma had sent earlier. It was of Sophie wearing a t-shirt that said "Be kind, but take no crap." I laughed out loud, startling a firefly that had landed on the swing's armrest. Margaret would have loved that shirt. As the stars started to come out, I closed my eyes and whispered to the night, to Margaret, to whatever part of the universe was listening. I did it, love. I stood my ground, and I'm still standing. The wind chimed softly in response, and I smiled, because I knew, deep in my bones, that she was proud. And more importantly, I was proud of myself. Tell me in the comments. And if you've dealt with something similar, share your story. You're not alone. Subscribe for more stories about standing your ground and reclaiming your life. Life isn't about never getting knocked down. It's about deciding every single day to get back up, to protect what matters, to love hard but guard your heart, to be kind but never weak. And as I sat there, surrounded by the sounds of a peaceful summer night, I knew one thing for certain. This house, this life, this peace, it was mine, earned, protected, cherished, and no one, not now, not ever, would take that away from me again. Because I'm George Harrison. I'm 75 years old, and I'm still here, still strong, still standing. And that's enough. That's more than enough. That's everything. The end.